What's the biggest lie we tell our children? It's told with the best of intentions. Parents want to inspire and encourage their kids. They want to motivate them to reach for the stars. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the time, this lie only ends up discouraging kids. It ends up hurting them and making the situation worse. What's that lie? If you work hard enough, you can be anything you want to be. That is the biggest, most hurtful lie a well-intentioned parent can tell their child. Think about that statement. Do you really believe it? Do you really think it's true? No honest person could ever believe such a ridiculous statement. If your goal is to set your child up for failure and disappointment, then by all means say it to them. Tell them, if you work hard enough, you can be anything you want to be. Now, have you achieved all your dreams? Do you currently possess everything you've ever wanted and became, that which you dreamed about for years? The answer, probably not. Now the real question is your current situation because you didn't try hard enough? Could you have achieved everything you've ever dreamed of if you had just worked harder? Of course not. I doubt it. Too many parents believe this lie is acceptable to tell a young child because a young child doesn't have enough real-world experience to understand this statement for what it is, a lie. These parents believe they're inspiring their little one by giving them a sky's the limit belief in their future potential. But if you think about it honestly, if you consider that statement and the real likelihood that it could actually be realized, you have to admit it is a preposterously ridiculous thing to say to your son or daughter. Now, I've never treated my son like he was stupid merely because he was 2 years old or 5 or 10. Being honest with your son or daughter at every age is important. Now, I understand that you can't explain to a 4-year-old why it is unlikely that she will become an astronaut, but you could explain that it takes many years of schooling and hard work to achieve that goal. If she's hell-bent on becoming an astronaut, then use that to encourage her to do well in school, especially math and science. Teach her that realizing any dream takes hard work and commitment. Help your daughter to understand that although some dreams may be extremely difficult to achieve, she should never stop dreaming about what her future might look like. Now, should you ever lie to your child? Yes. At times, a white lie, maybe even a bigger lie, will temporarily shield them from harm. I never liked lying to my son, but sometimes it's the right thing for a parent to do. So, what's an acceptable lie? Here's one. Let's say your son is in the 9th grade and he's just about to start taking his end of semester exams. Unfortunately, his grandmother, who he's very close to, passed away last night. She died in her sleep. At least it was a peaceful way to go. Now, do you share that with your son when tomorrow is his first exam? Do you tell him that when he has 4 exams in the next 3 days? Or do you wait until exams are over before giving him that news? Now, I've known many people that would argue vehemently that you need to tell him about his grandmother's passing immediately. It's not right to withhold that information. Now, I've known people like that. You probably have. My question is, why? Why is it so important to share it now rather than delay it for a few days, maybe a week? I'm not talking about missing a funeral or anything that might be an important part of dealing with and accepting that loss. I'm talking about delaying it for a few days so your son can get through his exams without the trauma of dealing with his grandmother's death. A trauma that would very likely cause his attention and focus to drastically decline, almost certainly leading to a very bad showing on his exams. Now, parents have to make many difficult decisions for their children. In my opinion, with this example, delaying that news is the right thing to do. Now, is this example far-fetched? What's the odds of that happening? Actually, that did happen. My wife's father, my father-in-law, passed when my son was in his first few weeks at the Air Force Academy. Now, my son is the first in our family to go into the military. He had no real idea what that transition from civilian to military life would be like. When my wife dropped him off the first day, he kissed her goodbye, he ran up the steps into a big unknown, had a big smile on his face, super excited about his new adventure. Now, fast forward like 12 hours, and the new cadets are allowed to make one phone call. He calls my wife. She's on the phone with someone she does not even recognize. Our independent, confident, good decision maker is not on the phone. He's telling my wife he's not sure he can get through this. My wife can hear it in his voice. He's shaken up badly. This is something radically new for him, and he was having a very difficult time with it, as was virtually every first-year cadet there. About 2 weeks later, my father-in-law passes, his grandfather. The first thing I say is, we can't tell Joseph. We waited. We waited until his communications to us, which were mostly handwritten letters, started to turn positive. Until we got the letter that said, I've got it, I've got this, I can do it, we did not tell him about his grandfather. There was no real reason to share that news with our son at that time when it happened. Now, technically, I guess this wasn't exactly a lie. What it was keeping information for our son that would only do him harm at that time. There was no positive upside to sharing that. Now, a much more recognizable lie, let's assume you celebrate Christmas, is obviously the fiction that there's a Santa Claus. We told our son all about Santa Claus. That's an acceptable lie in my book. Those years were so much fun for my wife and I, especially our son. We told that lie without hesitation. The point here, I hope I'm making, is that parents do lie to their kids at times. But there ought to be a good reason for telling a lie, like to avoid an unnecessary harm or to prevent a situation until such time that you're in a place or a time that being truthful is more appropriate. Now, let's get back to the biggest and worst lie to tell your child. If you work hard enough, you could be anything you want to be. Why is this lie so bad? Let me start my argument this way. There are many successful musicians, business owners, authors, singers, etc., who will honestly admit that their success, the successful ones, their success was a healthy mix of talent, hard work, and luck. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for almost 25 years. That city is full of amazingly talented musicians. Any night of the week, I could go somewhere and watch incredible bands. I'm sure this is true of places like Nashville, New York City, Detroit, many cities around the country. And the vast majority of those bands will never land a recording contract. They will never be heard by anyone but locals. Their songwriting and musicianship will never be as appreciated, perhaps, as it should be. Every honest band member will tell you that making the big time has a huge luck factor to it. Telling your child you could be anything you want to be if you work hard enough sets them on a road to ruin. Most people will never sign a recording contract. Most people will not become famous movie stars or get into an Ivy League college. Most of us will not get our books published. We will not start the next big tech company. Most of us lead ordinary lives. Your child will most likely lead an ordinary life, or what most people consider to be an ordinary life. And that, to me, is the second biggest lie. Although you probably wouldn't consider my life extraordinary, I've pursued my dreams. I've married young. I've been working at it hard for over 30 years. I've spent many great years of my life raising a son that makes me proud 97.3% of the time. From the outside, I'm sure most people will consider my life ordinary, perhaps even boring. It doesn't matter to me what they think. I have had, am having, and look forward to having the time of my life. Teach your child the joy of living their best life on their own terms. Teach them to find joy and passion doing the things that mean something special to them. Teach them that when they live like that, An extraordinary life can be found practically anywhere, everywhere. Please don't send them down the dead-end street of, if you don't realize all your dreams, it's your own fault. You didn't work hard enough. Because even though parents don't intend for that statement, you can be anything you want to be if you work hard enough, even though they don't intend for that to mean you're a failure. If you don't realize your dreams, that's kind of what it means. Now, let's think about this from the mind of a teenager. I know, teenager's mind is a scary place, but let's just pretend for a minute. When you tell that biggest lie to your very young child, and that's who hears that lie most often, when those same kids reach their teenage years, they start to realize how false, how inaccurate that statement is. Now, how frustrating do you think that is to a growing teenager? In their mind, they've been told repeatedly that if I work hard enough, I can get whatever I want out of life. And it's a lie. That's a difficult realization to deal with, especially for a teenager. Teenagers have enough biological and chemical things going on in their bodies to cause enough anarchy in their lives. Don't, as a parent, add more fuel to that fire by setting them up for failure. When my son was in middle school and played on the basketball team, one of his teammates was super into basketball. His dream was to make the varsity squad and then play basketball in college. It was his life to a large extent. Our son would tell us how this kid would show up early to school most mornings to practice in the gym before classes. He went to basketball camps throughout the year. I was kind of interested in meeting the kid. So dedicated. When I did, I was shocked. It turns out he was maybe 5'1". Now, he was in middle school at the time. His growing years were still ahead of him. So I looked for his parents. And holy smokes, Mom was just over 5 feet tall, and Dad was maybe 5'6". The odds of that kid playing college basketball were about the same as winning the lottery. Now, I do believe he eventually made the varsity squad his senior year in high school, but from what my son told me, he's basically a bench warmer. I have no idea if he is playing college basketball. I hope so, but I kind of doubt it. I hope his mom and dad managed his dream. If they told him that if he worked hard enough, he could play college basketball, they were pretty much lying to him. How do you manage that dream? Well, first of all, continue to encourage him to practice and work hard and be the best basketball player he was capable of being. I do remember watching him play in middle school, and although he wasn't getting much playing time, he could dribble well, he passed well, and he took his shots from three-point land. He was pretty good from the outside. That's smart. He was never going to drive to the net without getting crushed. If I was his dad, I would have encouraged him to learn the game. If you're on the bench, sit near the coach, learn the game, become a student of the game, and perhaps alter your dream from playing to coaching. That's what good parents do. They encourage their kids to reach for the stars. But if they're doing it right, they use the old saying, keep your head in the clouds, but your feet on the ground. If you want to raise a healthy, well-adjusted, thoughtful, decent, contributing member of society, that is, an independent, confident, good decision maker, don't lie to your kids. Don't be that parent that tells their young child the biggest lie. If you work hard enough, you could be anything you want to be. Because it's not true. The vast majority of the time, it ends in disappointment, frustration, failure. Help your kids to be the best version of themselves while helping them manage their future hopes and dreams. Be realistic. Head in the clouds, but feet firmly planted on the ground. These kids grow up to be bigger successes sometimes than even they could have imagined. Thanks for listening.